So what's the difference between the men's Superfly 6 and the kids Superfly 6? Well, the kids one is smaller. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, subscribe for more videos, and we'll see you in the next one. What's going on guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com bringing you my review of the junior Nike Mercurial Superfly 6 Elite. No on feet, unfortunately, because I don't wear a size 6. Anyways, if you're familiar with the men's version of the Superfly 6, you'll immediately notice a lot of differences here on the junior variation. Yes, they're smaller, but the overall shape and profile of the shoe is quite a bit different. It maintains a collar, it adds a pull tab. The overall materials on the shoe and Flyknit construction is quite a bit different as well. It has a split sole, that's not quite the same either. And honestly, there are a lot of differences when comparing them to the men's version, which is interesting because they're still quite expensive, retailing for $175. Are they worth it, and what exactly are you getting for your money? That's what we're gonna be discussing in today's video. So if you wanna learn more, please stick around, watch the whole thing. And if you are interested in a pair for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $175 retail price. Now, because this is a top-end model from Nike, you would probably anticipate them coming with a string bag. Unfortunately, all you get inside the box are the shoes themselves. No string bag is included. This isn't too surprising because Nike has never included a string bag with the top end junior variations of any of their boots. However, considering these are $175, I really do feel like it should have been included. Unfortunately, it's not though. Now, I want to start off this review by explaining why the kids version of so many top end models end up being so much different from the men's variations of that exact same shoe. And 99% of the time, the reasoning as to why there are so many differences is down to scale. When you have a men's shoe, any shoe at all, you have to make it bigger, you have to make it smaller. Obviously, the sizes are going to determine how big or how small the shoe is. This is a size 9.5 US, so it's kind of the middle of the sizing range that's available. They make this shoe all the way down to a 7, and then they go all the way up, I believe, to a 13, possibly a 14. I'm not 100% sure on that. But as the shoe gets bigger and smaller, all these patterns within the Flyknit weave have to get bigger and smaller. The Soleplate, the Stub Plate materials have to get bigger and smaller. The plastics themselves usually don't change as you go up and down in size, but if you were to use all these same materials down to this particular scale, it's entirely possible that this in a size 6 youth, the biggest of the youth sizes, the materials, the flex of the shoe, the fit of the shoe would be completely off. So they actually have to change things in order to accommodate the actual physical size of the shoes themselves. Now, there are certain instances where I'm sure they cut corners for the sake of cost savings, and it seems like there's a lot of that happening in this particular shoe. However, we don't really know if that is the true reason, but really scale is the main reason why you end up seeing differences when you go from a shoe that's a size 9 US down to a size 3 US. You can only make the materials and the design so small until changes have to be made. Now, starting off with the upper, it is made from Flyknit, so the same base material is what you'll find on the men's version of the shoe, but the overall construction is quite a bit different. You still have the structured sides where the Nike skin covering is, and you still have the elasticated Flyknit where the laces are positioned and extending into the collar. However, again, I think mainly for the sake of scale, you're gonna notice that the pattern is not quite the same and it doesn't have all the same elements. This has a much more heavily padded liner, and you can even tell just based on the shape. I mean, if I take the men's variation right here and I put the toe box side by side, it's a much higher volume toe box on the youth variation, which is interesting. But again, they're going for a shoe that I think kids are for the most part going to like the feel of. I used to work at a soccer store, for those that don't know, and often Nike used to make these kind of youth Mercurials fit very tight, almost like the men's variations. And what I found whenever kids would try them on is that they always found them too tight, even if the sizing was right and they actually fit them properly. Kids, for the most part, kind of want something that's gonna be a little bit more roomy. They tend to find it a lot more comfortable. So I think for that particular reason, that's why the shape of this shoe is kind of a more higher volume and likely a lot wider than what you'd find from the men's version of the shoe, just because that's what kids tend to prefer in terms of comfort and overall feel on feet. Is it really that important to have the tightest fitting shoe if you're still wearing a youth size? And I assume you're a kid if you're still wearing a youth size. Probably not. And I think honestly, this is probably the right decision. Even the material itself, it has a more heavily padded liner on the inside, and the Flyknit itself seems to be a lot thicker. It does have a good amount of softness to it. It's still very, very flexible. I would actually compare this upper, honestly, more so to what we had on the Mercurial Superfly 5, which is not a bad thing at all. It's still a premium material. And again, I think for kids, they're gonna be more sensitive to a harder ball. They're gonna be more sensitive to just not having as much padding. So I think having a little bit more padding, even though it is a Mercurial, it's designed around having a barefoot feel. For kids, this is probably better for them in the long run. As far as texturing on the surface is concerned, it does have the Nike skin covering as you would normally see. And you can see there's those streaks right there running the length of the shoe as you'd find on the men's variation as well. But those are basically just painted on for the sake of looks. It doesn't have the extra texturing on the surface, which I don't know why they didn't choose to put that on there. That would have scaled just fine, but they did it this way for whatever reason. Also, they do include ACC all conditions control, which I think it's really funny that they shrunk down the logo extremely small on the youth variation. You can hardly see it, but ACC all conditions control, a wet control element from Nike that honestly I don't think does much of anything at all, but a lot of kids are super into it, and you get it here on the youth version of the Superfly. Moving on, the lacing system still runs through the middle of the shoe using a one-piece construction and a dual lace hole setup. So nothing is different about that whatsoever. It's fully elasticated material running through the middle, and then of course extending into the collar. You will, however, notice that it says Flyknit rather than Superfly 360, and that is partially because this is technically not the same 360-degree Flyknit upper that you find on the men's version. Yes, it has a split sole, but you're gonna notice that the actual construction of the shoe does not have a seam through the middle like you'll find on the men's version. This is actually more like what you'll find on the Pro or Academy variations within the men's lineup. More on this in just a second because there's a reason why they did it this way. As far as the collar is concerned, it's pretty much the exact same collar, just scaled down to be smaller to fit the size of the shoe. And it is a lower style collar as well. So for the most part, that's gonna feel the same as the men's variation. Although again, this is pretty much just for show. There's no real performance benefit to having the collar or not having the collar. And for those wondering about a youth variation of the Vapor 12 Elite, which is basically the low cut version of the exact same shoe, at this point in time, and probably for the rest of this entire Mercurial lineup, the youth variation will only be available in the Superfly. They probably won't make a Vapor version ever, although that could change. I'm not really sure about it. And then something that they did add for the sake of the youth model, which I actually think is good, again, for kids to help put them on, because it can be a little bit of a pain because of this collar extension piece. They added a little pull tab here on the back with a nylon material. That's just gonna make things a lot easier because you do have to use both hands to get these shoes on properly, loosen the laces. This is just gonna make things a lot easier for a lot of kids. The heel features a very hard internal plastic heel counter that seems to be larger and just much more structured than what you'll find on the men's variation, which again, for the sake of protection, considering that this is a kid's shoe, I honestly don't think that's a bad thing whatsoever. And then as far as the liner is concerned, you can kind of get a good look at it here. It is a synthetic leather material rather than synthetic suede. They put some micro perforations there on the side, I think just to kind of again relate it to that men's variation. It's got a decent amount of padding, and for the most part, I don't really see too many issues with the liner. It seems high quality enough. The insole is fully removable, and again, very different than what you'll find from the men's variation. It does feature their Nike Grip top lining material, which honestly just feels like a regular mesh, so don't expect too much out of that. And it's made from a single layer of this gray foam. It has no shape to it whatsoever. It's literally just a flat piece of foam that's cut out into the shape of the insole with a little bit of extra padding kind of left in right around the heel, which I actually really like. I think that's something that they should include on the men's variation, but you get that extra padding again, because it is a kid's shoe. Comfort, I think, should be the priority here. Although, you'll notice that it doesn't have the extra pattern pressed on the bottom or that little extra insert piece, and the reasoning for that is because this does not have the same locking system. If you look underneath, the sole plate is completely smooth and entirely different than what you'll find on the men's version of the Superfly. You'll notice on the bottom of the boots, it does say anatomical speed system, and that refers to the sole plate of the shoe, which a lot of people don't seem to understand the whole split sole thing. There is still structure through the middle. If you bend the shoe, it still bends in the forefoot. This midfoot area is extremely rigid because there's still a full-length sole plate that runs heel to toe. The difference is that they actually wrap the material of the upper underneath, kind of exposing that midfoot, making it look like there isn't a sole plate. And then they put a stud plate, which is basically just a piece of plastic that holds the studs at the heel as well as in the forefoot. So the sole plate, instead of being one layer or two layers of material, is now three separate pieces, with the middle part just being exposed here with whatever upper material they use. And this is actually the cheaper upper material filling in the middle. It's not even made from the same Flyknit. Not a big deal though. That doesn't affect performance or traction in any way at all. However, I showed you that part, which does imply that this has an anatomically shaped sole plate, which you will find on the men's variation, which is basically the sole plate base being slightly rounded inward. So you kind of sit slightly in the sole plate rather than directly on top of a flat surface. While I can't try these on with the insole removed, just feeling around on the inside and looking at what you can see, the sole plate looks to be completely flat. It's not the same material. There's really no reason why this would be anatomically shaped. So that branding is there almost for the sake of a marketing gimmick. There is no anatomic sole plate shape here. It's pretty much just a regular flat sole plate, which is not a bad thing. It's just different from the men's variation. As far as the stud plates are concerned, obviously they're made from plastic. They don't have the same kind of multicolor wearable finish that you'll find on the men's variation of the Superfly. Not a big deal. Some people actually like the way that this black looks better. Personally, I think it looks better as well. And as far as the stud pattern is concerned, it is the firm ground stud pattern, pretty much the same layout you'll find on the men's variation. The difference being that the length of the studs, and to a certain extent the size of the studs, they're just smaller. Again, scaled down for the size of the shoe. You don't want studs that would be the full size length. They'd just be too big considering the weight of somebody that would wear a shoe size like this. They would be too long and partially a little bit dangerous because it'd be unstable. But this is, again, scaled properly for the size of the shoe. And as far as traction is concerned, this made specifically for use on firm natural grass. It's going to be very, very aggressive. I think the Mercurials have really set the standard in terms of providing maximum bite and just very aggressive traction in general. So if that is what you're after, that is what you're going to get here. As far as weight is concerned, that's where there's a pretty significant difference between the youth and the men's version, but it's not the difference that you're expecting. The men's version in a size 9.5 US weighs in at about 7 ounces exactly, whereas the youth version in a size 6 US, 3.5 sizes smaller, weighs in at 6.8 ounces. So within 0.2 ounces of the men's variation, obviously a little bit lighter, but very, very close in weight considering the size difference between the two. How does that make any sense at all? Well, it has to do with the construction of the sole plate, the extra lining materials. Like I said, this shoe in general, the heel counter also I mentioned, is a lot more heavy duty. All of that adds a little bit of weight to the shoe, which is why these do almost weigh as much as the men's version in a much bigger size. Are they still gonna feel light on your feet? Absolutely. Are most kids really gonna know the difference? No, not at all. And I think if you're looking for a youth Mercurial that's going to offer the best quality, this is your best option. However, if you're expecting them to weigh like 5 ounces versus 7 ounces because they're significantly smaller, that's not the case at all. As far as the look is concerned, it has the same overall look as what you'll find from the men's version of the Superfly, just more compact, I guess is the best way to put it. The swooshes are in the same positions. The one difference you will find is that the Mercurial branding, you can see it does have that multicolor kind of effect to it. The M doesn't go right to the bottom. It kind of sits slightly above, whereas if you look at the men's version, obviously the M is a lot bigger because the heel is a lot bigger, but it goes right to the base of the sole, which I think is a little bit strange that they didn't do that. I'm not sure what the reasoning would be. Again, it says Flyknit versus Superfly 360 here on the front, but even within the collar and then the part that stretches out, it reveals that volt in the mid layer of the Flyknit itself, which I think is a cool little extra detail. And again, the sole plate does not have that same kind of metallic finish that you'd find on the men's variation, but this is wearable anyways, and once it wears off, it turns black. So this is eventually what it would look like. And honestly, I think that this looks a little bit cleaner overall. If you are interested in changing up the look of your shoes ever so slightly, you can check out these black reflective junior length SR4U replacement laces. They are the exact same length as the ones that come on the shoes. And I actually think the black laces, they accent nicely with the black parts on the shoe, and it makes them look a little bit slimmer overall. So if you are interested in some SR4U replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. Now, as far as fit and sizing is concerned, obviously I can't try them on, so I can't give 100% accurate information on that as far as a recommendation is concerned. However, having worked at a soccer store before and having a lot of experience with sizing kids in youth shoes, most of Nike's youth models tend to run true to size, so I think true to size is probably a safe bet if you are ordering these online. And as far as the fit is concerned, again, you can see the overall shape of the shoe just being much higher volume, especially in the toe box forefoot area. Even the midfoot, it has a different construction, partially for the sake of width. So while the men's Mercurials have a reputation of being a little bit more narrow or having a really tight fit, I think while these aren't gonna be super, super wide, they are gonna fit most kids pretty comfortably. So in conclusion, are these worth $175? Because after all, this is a kids model, meaning that you're probably gonna grow out of them after a season or two. Well, I think it's really gonna come down to your parents and what they're willing to spend. If you are showing this video to your parents, hello parents, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. And this is what I would say. The quality is there, you get Flyknit, you get ACC all conditions control, you get the mid-cut collar, you get the stud pattern of the high-end Mercurial. Those are all carryover features that I think are legitimately very good. And in terms of what your options are from a Nike Mercurial model, in a youth size, this is by far the best quality option, much better quality than what you'll find from the Academy variation, which I know it looks similar, but they are quite a bit different in terms of the materials used. However, it's a lot of money for a kid's shoe. If you can justify the price, I definitely think it's a decent quality boot. If you can't justify the price, then it's probably not worth it. Anyways, guys, that is it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. And again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $175 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching.